So today I just want to tie a simple Callibaetis imitation, which is just a basic pheasant tail with a flashback and an epoxy back. And I tied on a size 14 2X instead, because that's sort of what I have laying around. And I always pinch the barbs. I don't buy barbless hooks because I want to prevent the leader from sliding off if I tie multi flies on, which I always do. So again, very basic fly. I'm just going to start the thread and go down the shank to about the barb. Pull off the extra. I'm going to strip off I don't know, 6 pheasant tail fibers, and I'm going to line them straight. And I'll tie those in just with a simple pinch wrap. There's probably a few things that I do differently than most when I do this. I try not to take more than 2 wraps kind of on my initial, and again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Next thing I'm going to do, or you can do this first, is I'm going to tie in a piece of French tinsel, small UTC. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just cover up the thread. I really crank these out, not that I lose a lot of them, but they're pretty simple to tie. Trying to minimize the number of thread wraps that I have at the back. And then I'm just going to take a small, just tiny strand of pearl Flashaboo. I'm actually going to back off that last wrap that I had there, and I'm going to tie it in so that's just sitting on top of the tail there. I'm going to pull that tail up. If I want, I can slip a wrap underneath it to kind of hold it up, splay it out a little bit, just gives it a little bit more action. And then I'm going to pull everything back, wrap my thread under and forward, half hitch it, put it off on the post. And then what I simply do is I sort of work the fibers back to where I'm covering my thread, and then I hold them at about a 15-degree angle and just rotate the vise forward. And I'm going to go basically all the way forward, and I'm going to go in the direction of my thread. Pull it up at a 90-degree angle, 1 or 2 wraps on top, 1 or 2 wraps in front to lock it down. Again, I'm going to half hitch, go back to my thread post, cut off my excess, which I do that by just sliding my scissors down to the base. Next thing I'm going to do is pull that flashback over the top. I'm going to kind of hold it down with my finger. Not super critical. Just trying to get it sort of on top. And then I'm just gonna tie that down again. And then just half hitch back up, make sure it's sort of where I want it, go back to my thread post, and then I'm going to wrap the opposite direction with my wire. And again, I'm going to hold about a 20 to 30 degree angle on that and just rotate my vise as I move forward. And again, I can go way up over the thorax because I'm going to cover all this up, so it sort of makes things cleaner. I'm going to put 2 wraps over, and then I'm just going to wiggle my tinsel and pull, put some tension on it, and it'll come off. And as you'll see now, I've got a ribbed fly with a flash epoxy back, or that's just a flashback, and then we'll add the epoxy for the abdomen. I've also got some tails that are kind of sticking up here like we would see on a Callibaetis. It's a great Callibaetis imitation. It's got the gills with the body naturally. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tie in another kind of clump of pheasant. No magical number here. I'm trying to get a few legs on each side. Get those straight. And I'm just going to do a pinch wrap to kind of splay back, and then I'm just going to pull until they sort of get to about the length that I want them to be. And the length that you want them to be is often shorter looking than you would think, and I think that's one of the proportional things that a lot of people have trouble with. And then I just leave this back here because that's actually going to be my back. I'm going to tear off a couple of pieces of peacock and trim off the kind of delicate tips, and I'll tie those in as well. And you can tie them in long, and again just kind of pull them in, nothing fancy here. And then I'm gonna slide my thread. I'm gonna just throw a half hitch, and I'm gonna throw it under the eye there. And again, one of the nice things about the Nor-Vise. So then I'm gonna hook on with my hackle pliers, and I'm gonna twist that a few times. I don't have to twist it all the way up, just a few times. And then again, I'm gonna rotate my vise backwards, same direction I would wrap my thread. More than anything, it makes it easier to tie off the head. And as soon as I get up close to the head, I'm just gonna pull up at a 90 degree again. 2 wraps in front, or 2 wraps on top. And then again, I'm going to slide a half hitch, as it just makes my life easier, up underneath that hook eye. Allows me to pull this up, trim it close. And then before I get to putting the flashback over, I'm going to separate these fibers that I have here, and these are going to be my legs. So I'm going to pull these up and over, and I'm just going to try and see if I can get one wrap there. I'm really crowding the head here, so I don't want to be wrapping like crazy on the head. And then I'm going to pull that back over. Again, one more thread wrap. Pull my flashback, which sometimes gets kind of cattywampus here. I'm not going to pull real tight because I want it to sort of stick out there. I'm going to check everything. Maybe 2 wraps. Again, I'm going to half hitch underneath those materials. Pull them up. Slide my scissors down, put some pressure on the head, get as close as I can, because I'm basically done now. And double check everything. And so now I'm right down on top of that head, so if I try and put wraps on here, luckily these must-add hooks have nice big hook eyes that you can get some leverage against, but I'm going to wax my thread Davy McPhail style so I can get good coverage on that head and some good grip. Couple of wraps, simple whip finish, 2, 3, done. Trim my thread. And then the final step, there's a couple of tips in here that I'm actually going to call out in separate videos, is I like to squeeze my clear cure goo, which actually here I have Fleck, which I actually ordered something else and I got 2 tubes of Fleck, and it seems to work just fine because there's, at this small of a fly, there's so few flecks in there, it doesn't really matter, and I think it adds to the flash of the fly. So I just pour it onto a card, and this card will actually stay for a couple of days. This is just an old hook cardboard, but it kind of keeps me from having to fight the plunger and the squeeze bottle. And I'm just gonna touch it on the back, Cover up a little bit on the thread. It's okay to go down a little bit onto the epoxy back. Just kind of cover it up. If you've got some lumps, just let it sit for a minute and those will dissipate kind of through gravity. I can add a little bit more if I want. Doesn't need to be massive, just trying to create that illusion of an air bubble. This is how I clean my needle. I basically push it through cardboard, or you can actually burn it with a lighter. So once that looks like what I'm after, and I've got that appropriate flash, then I just hit it with a light. And one thing I do, in case I've got some stray goo or something, I will just spin my vise and I will just make sure that I've captured anything that's not directly underneath it. Obviously you want your card where you're storing your little mound of glue outside of that so it doesn't harden up. And that's basically it. Really simple Callibaetis imitation. Works amazing. Really slow strip, as slow as you can strip, an inch at a time, 5 inches a minute for lakes.